Zara Mentz's hands were raw from scrubbing toilets when she took the wrong turn that would change her life forever. 2:47 in the morning, and the Lotus Hanok Hotel's west wing stretched before her like a maze designed to confuse the exhausted and the careless. The Korean signs had disappeared 3 corridors ago, replaced by numbers that made no sense and doors that all looked identical in the dim emergency lighting. She was lost, bone-tired, and desperate to finish her shift before her supervisor discovered she'd fallen behind schedule again. 3 months in Seoul. 3 months of 12-hour night shifts that paid barely enough to cover her cramped shared room in Itaewon and still send money back to Accra where her mother lay dying of kidney failure. 3 months of existing in the shadows of this glittering city, invisible to everyone except the other night shift workers who knew better than to ask about expired visas or false work permits. Invisibility meant survival. Survival meant her mother lived long enough for Zara to save the money for surgery that seemed impossibly far away. Zara pushed through what she thought was a storage closet, her cleaning cart abandoned 2 corridors back, and walked straight into a wall of steam. Thick, hot steam that made her glasses fog instantly. She yanked them off, blinking against the moisture, her brain slowly registering that this wasn't a closet at all. This was a bathroom. An enormous, marble-and-glass private bathroom with heated floors and rainfall shower heads and the kind of luxury she'd only seen in magazines. And the water had just stopped running. Through the fog, a figure emerged. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Naked except for water streaming down skin covered in tattoos that looked less like art and more like warnings written in a language she couldn't read but understood instinctively. A serpent coiled up his ribs, its mouth open in a silent strike. Korean characters she didn't recognize marked his shoulders and arms. More symbols covered his back, visible as he reached for a towel. This wasn't decoration. This wasn't rebellion. This was a resume written in violence, a map of affiliations and kills and power. Their eyes met. Zara's mouth opened to apologize, to explain, to beg for her life because she understood immediately what she was looking at, but no sound came out. Her throat had closed completely. The man didn't flinch. Didn't shout. Didn't cover himself or reach for a weapon she was certain existed somewhere close by. He simply watched her with eyes so dark they swallowed the bathroom's warm lighting, his expression utterly calm in a way that terrified her more than rage would have. The calmness was worse. Rage she understood. Rage was human. This was something else entirely. "I'm so sorry," Zara finally managed in broken Korean, her accent thick with panic and 3 months of inadequate language lessons. "Wrong door, I didn't mean to intrude, please, I'll leave right now, I'm so sorry, please. Don't move." His voice was quiet. Dangerously quiet. The kind of quiet that preceded violence in every movie she'd ever watched. Zara froze, her body obeying before her brain could process the command. Every true crime documentary she'd ever watched about Korea's underworld flashed through her mind in rapid succession. The Yakuza. The triads. The syndicates that controlled everything from drugs to real estate to politicians to the very hotel she was standing in. This man's tattoos weren't rebellious fashion statements worn by artists and musicians. They were credentials. They were proof of membership in organizations that disappeared people who saw too much. And she had just seen everything. He reached for a black silk robe hanging on the wall, moving with the controlled grace of a predator who never hurried because nothing ever escaped him anyway. When he turned back to her, the robe hung open, still revealing those serpent scales across his chest, the beast's head positioned directly over his heart. "You're new," he said. Not a question. A statement of fact he somehow already knew. Zara nodded, not trusting her voice, not trusting anything except the certainty that she had made a mistake that would cost her everything. "Turn around." She obeyed instantly, her survival instinct overriding her pride, overriding everything except the desperate need to live through the next 5 minutes. Behind her, she heard water dripping from his hair, fabric rustling as he tied the robe, the small sounds of him dressing. She stared at the door 15 feet away and calculated her chances of reaching it before he stopped her. The math wasn't good. The math was terrible. He would catch her in 3 steps, maybe 4. What's your name? Zara. Why was she telling him? Why give him anything that could be used to find her later? Zara Mensa. Ghanaian. Yes. Her voice cracked on the single syllable. You speak Korean. I'm trying to learn. I'm not very good yet. I'm sorry, I know I should be better by now. Better than most foreigners manage in 3 months. There was something in his tone she couldn't identify. Not quite approval. Not quite threat. Something in between that made her skin prickle. Look at me. Zara turned slowly, every movement careful and deliberate. He was dressed now in tailored black pants and a white shirt he was buttoning with meticulous precision, each movement controlled and intentional. His wet hair was slicked back from a face that would have been beautiful if it weren't so obviously dangerous. Sharp cheekbones that could cut glass. A mouth that looked like it rarely smiled and never laughed. And those eyes that seemed to catalog everything about her in seconds, her cheap shoes, her worn uniform, the exhaustion in her face, the fear she couldn't hide. You work the night shift, he said, still not making it a question. Yes. Alone most of the time. Zara hesitated. Lying felt more dangerous than the truth, but the truth revealed how vulnerable she was. Most of the time. Sometimes there are others, but tonight I'm alone in this wing. I know. Of course he knew. He probably knew everything. Do you know who I am? No. The lie came automatically, self-preservation overriding honesty. She didn't know his name, but she knew what those tattoos meant. What this private bathroom in a restricted wing meant. What the absolute certainty in his voice meant. She knew she was standing in front of someone important enough to have privacy in a hotel that catered to the wealthy and powerful. Someone dangerous enough that even his naked vulnerability radiated threat. Good. Keep it that way. He tilted his head slightly, studying her with an intensity that made her feel stripped bare despite being fully clothed. The lock on the maintenance corridor door is faulty. That's how you ended up here. An accident. Do you understand? He was giving her a story. A way out. An escape route from a situation that should have ended with her body in Seoul's harbor. Zara grabbed it like a drowning woman grabbing a rope. Yes. An accident. The lock was broken. I didn't know where I was. I thought it was a storage room. You won't speak of this. His tone hadn't changed, but the words landed with absolute finality, heavy as stones. Not to your supervisor. Not to other staff. Not to anyone you know in Seoul or back in Ghana. Not to your family, not to friends, not to anyone. Do you understand? Yes. I swear, I won't tell anyone. I didn't see anything important. I don't know anything. The words tumbled out desperately. If you break that promise, I'll know. He said it simply, casually, the way someone might mention the weather or comment on traffic. And then I can't protect you from what happens next. The words froze Zara's blood. Protect her? From what? From whom? From him or from something worse that she couldn't even imagine? Can I go? She whispered. He studied her for another long moment that felt like hours, his gaze moving from her face down to her hands that were clenched at her sides, then back up to meet her eyes. Finally, he stepped aside and gestured toward the door with one hand. Go. Zara walked toward freedom, forcing herself not to run even though every cell in her body screamed at her to flee. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her terror. Wouldn't prove that she was as powerless as they both knew she was. Her hand closed around the door handle. Cold metal. Real. Solid. Zara Mensa. She stopped but didn't turn around, her hand frozen on the handle. You have intelligent eyes, he said quietly. In my experience, intelligence either saves people or destroys them. I haven't decided which it will be for you yet. Zara fled. She made it to the service elevator before her legs gave out and she collapsed against the wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor, her breath coming in ragged gasps that sounded like sobs. Intelligent eyes. What the hell did that mean? Was it a compliment? A threat? A promise of something worse than death? Her hands shook as she tried to stand, failed, tried again. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. The message was in English, perfect English with no typos or autocorrect errors. Go home. Black car outside service entrance will take you. Tomorrow 9 a.m. report to penthouse suite 4801. This is not a request. Zara stared at the screen until the words blurred. How did he have her number? How did he know she took the bus because she couldn't afford a car? How did he know where she lived? How did he? Another message appeared before she could finish the thought. Mapogu District. Building 3. 4th floor. Apartment 403. Your roommate Kim-sun, he is sleeping. You share a bathroom with 4 other tenants. I know where you sleep, Zara. I know everything. Don't make me prove it. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. He knew where she lived. Knew her roommate's name. Knew the layout of her building. Of course he did. Men like him knew everything. That's how they stayed alive. That's how they stayed in power. Outside the service entrance, exactly as promised, a black Mercedes sedan idled with tinted windows and a driver in a dark suit who opened the rear door without a word, without expression, like this was routine. Like he transported terrified hotel workers every night. Zara stood on the sidewalk, the cold October air biting through her thin uniform, her mind screaming danger while her exhausted body swayed with fatigue. She could refuse. Could run right now. Could disappear into Seoul's sprawling neighborhoods and hope he'd lose interest, hope she was too insignificant to bother hunting down. But men like that didn't lose interest. They eliminated problems. And she'd just become a very big problem. Zara got into the car. The leather seats were heated. Classical music played softly through expensive speakers. The driver knew exactly where she lived without her saying a word, navigating Seoul's late-night streets with practiced ease. He knew which entrance to use, which floor, which door. He waited, engine idling, until she was inside her apartment with the door locked before driving away into the night. Zara locked every lock on her door, shoved a chair under the doorknob, and sat on her narrow bed staring at her phone for 3 hours, waiting for another message that would tell her exactly how much danger she was in. Her roommate Sun-hee slept peacefully in the next room, completely unaware that Zara had just walked into a nightmare. Sleep didn't come. At 6 in the morning, Zara gave up trying and took a shower, scrubbing her skin until it hurt, trying to wash away the feeling of being seen, being known, being trapped. At 8:45, wearing the cleanest clothes she owned, black pants and a white blouse she'd bought for a job interview that never happened, Zara stood outside the penthouse suite on the 48th floor of the Lotus Hanok Hotel, trying to control the trembling in her hands. Her finger hovered over the doorbell. Once she pressed it, there was no going back. Once she crossed this threshold, her life would change in ways she couldn't predict or control. She pressed the button. The door opened immediately, as if someone had been watching through the peephole, waiting for her arrival. A woman in her 50s stood there, elegant in a dark blue Chanel suit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun, her expression professionally neutral. She gestured Zara inside without a word, without a smile, without any acknowledgement that this was strange or unusual. The penthouse was enormous and cold despite floor-to-ceiling windows flooding it with morning light that turned Seoul's skyline into a painting. Everything was black, white, or chrome. No color. No warmth. No personality. Just expensive emptiness that echoed with each of Zara's careful steps across marble floors that probably cost more than she'd earn in a decade. Modern art that she didn't understand hung on walls. A kitchen that looked like it had never been used gleamed in stainless steel perfection. He sat at a glass desk near the windows, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent, his hair styled back from that dangerous face. He looked like a corporate executive. A CEO. A businessman who made deals and attended board meetings. Except for the tattoos visible at his collar and wrists. Except for the absolute stillness with which he watched her approach, the predator awareness in his eyes that reminded her he was anything but civilized. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a white leather chair across from him. Zara sat. The elegant woman disappeared silently through a door Zara hadn't noticed, leaving them alone with 48 floors between them and the ground, between them and escape, between them and anything resembling safety. "My name is Kong Min-sik," he began, his hands folded on the desk like he was conducting a job interview, like this was normal, like she had any choice in what happened next. "You need to know 3 things about me before we continue. First, I own this hotel and 17 others across Korea and Japan. Second, certain people would pay a great deal of money to know what you saw last night. Third, that makes you either an asset or a liability, and I haven't decided which yet." "I already told you I won't say anything," Zara said, proud that her voice didn't shake. "I believe you. But belief doesn't keep you safe. Facts do. Information does. Control does." Min-sik's expression didn't change, didn't soften. "You're working in Korea on an expired tourist visa. You entered the country 3 months ago on a visitor's permit that expired after 30 days. You send money to Ghana every week through an unlicensed wire transfer service in Itaewon. Your mother Grace Mensa needs kidney surgery that costs $30,000. The hospital is Coral Teaching Hospital in Accra. You've saved $8,000 in 3 months working here and at a second job teaching English online. At your current rate, you need 9 more months to save enough for the surgery, assuming no emergencies, no deportation, and that your mother survives that long." Zara's stomach dropped through the floor. "How do you know all of that?" "I know everything about everyone who works in my buildings. I know their debts, their secrets, their weaknesses, their families. It's how I stay alive in my world. It's how I stay in power." He leaned forward slightly, his dark eyes boring into hers. "I'm going to give you 2 choices, and I need you to understand that these are the only choices you have. There is no door number 3. There is no other path. These 2 options are your entire future. Do you understand?" Zara nodded, unable to speak. "First choice, you leave Korea today. This morning. I'll arrange transport to Incheon Airport and give you enough money to fly home business class and cover your expenses for the next 2 months while you look for work in Accra. You'll be alive. You'll be safe from me and from anyone who might become interested in you because of what you saw. But you'll never come back to Korea, and your mother will die waiting for surgery you can't afford without the income you're earning here." The words hit like physical blows, each one precise and devastating. Zara's throat closed. She couldn't breathe. "Second choice," Min-sik continued in that same calm, terrible voice that made her want to scream, "you stay in Seoul. You work for me directly, personally. Not as a cleaner. Not as hotel staff. As my personal assistant. The pay is substantial. 2,000,000 per week, roughly $1,600 plus room and board. Enough to cover your mother's surgery within 2 months. But you live in this building. You live under my protection and under my supervision. And you follow my rules without question." "What kind of rules?" Zara forced the words through her constricted throat. "You don't leave this building without my explicit permission. You don't contact anyone, family, friends, acquaintances, without my approval. You don't ask questions about my business or my associates. You don't speak of what you saw or what you'll see working for me. And you never, under any circumstances, betray my trust or my confidence." His dark eyes held hers. "In exchange, I guarantee your safety from my enemies, your mother's surgery fully paid within 2 months, and a legitimate work visa that will keep immigration from deporting you back to Ghana." It was a cage. A beautiful, expensive cage with her mother's life as the lock and her own freedom as the bars. "And if I refuse both?" Zara asked, even though she already knew the answer. Then you take your chances with Korean immigration and with the people who are already watching you because you were seen entering and leaving my private bathroom at 3 in the morning. Min-sik's expression remained unchanged, carved from stone. I give you 48 hours before immigration arrests you. I give you less time than that before someone from a rival organization decides you're a loose end that needs to be eliminated. You saw my face. You know what I look like without the shields of security and distance. That makes you valuable intelligence. Those chances aren't good, Zara. They're essentially zero. Her mind raced through scenarios, calculations, desperate alternatives. But they all ended the same way. Her mother dying in a hospital bed in Accra while Zara rotted in a Korean detention center waiting for deportation. Or worse. Or dead in an alley somewhere with no one to even claim her body. This man was offering her the only path that led anywhere except disaster. And he knew it. The certainty in his eyes told her he'd calculated every angle before she'd even arrived. How do I know you'll keep your word about the surgery? She asked. You don't. But I'm the only option you have where your mother lives. Min-sik stood, buttoning his jacket with that same meticulous precision she remembered from last night. So you'll choose me. Not because you trust me. Not because you want to. But because you're intelligent enough to choose survival over pride, life over principle, reality over ideals. Zara looked at him, this beautiful dangerous man who had trapped her with kindness disguised as cruelty, with salvation wrapped in chains. He was right. She had no choice. She'd had no choice from the moment she opened that bathroom door. Maybe she'd had no choice from the moment she'd decided to come to Korea at all, desperate and determined to save her mother no matter what it cost. But maybe, somewhere in this nightmare, she could find agency. Power. A way to survive that didn't mean complete surrender. 2 months, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. I work for you for 2 months. You pay for the surgery in full. Then I decide if I stay or leave. Something flickered in Min-sik's eyes. Surprise? Respect? Amusement? It vanished too quickly to identify. 3 months. And you don't decide anything without my permission. 2.5 months. And I keep my phone. I need to be able to contact my mother, to know she's okay. 2.5 months. The phone stays but I control who you contact and when. All calls are monitored. All messages are screened. No exceptions. He extended his hand across the desk. Do we have an agreement, Zara Mensah? She stared at his hand. This was a deal with the devil. But the devil was offering her mother's life, and what was her soul compared to that? What was her freedom worth if her mother died while she clung to principles that meant nothing in the real world? Zara shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and absolutely inescapable. His fingers closed around hers with the finality of a trap snapping shut. Welcome to your new life, Min-sik said. I promise you'll hate every minute of it. He was right about that too. The apartment Min-sik gave her was on the 47th floor, 1 level below his penthouse, connected by a private elevator that required a key card she didn't have. It was beautiful, more space and luxury than she'd ever experienced in her entire life. A king-sized bed with sheets that probably cost more than a month of her old salary. A marble bathroom with a soaking tub and a rainfall shower and heated floors. A kitchen she'd never use because meals appeared 3 times daily without her asking, breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 7, all prepared by staff she never saw and delivered by people who never spoke. But the windows didn't open. She'd tried every one and they were sealed shut, climate-controlled perfection that meant she'd never feel real air again. The door locked from the outside with an electronic system she couldn't override even though she'd spent 2 hours trying, examining the keypad and the magnetic lock and finding no weakness. And cameras watched from every corner of every room except the bathroom, their red lights blinking like tiny judging eyes that followed her movements, recording everything. Zara spent the first night cataloging escape routes and finding exactly none. The windows were sealed. The door was locked. The elevator required a key card. Even the air ducts were too small for a child, let alone a full-grown woman. She was in a prison designed to look like paradise, and there was no way out except through Kang Min-sik's permission. Her duties as Min-sik's personal assistant made no sense at first. He'd summon her at random hours, 2 in the morning, 7 at night, 5 in the morning before dawn, to translate English documents from business partners in the United States and Europe. To attend meetings where she sat silently in a corner while he conducted business in rapid Korean she couldn't follow, the words too fast and too technical. To pour tea while he worked at his desk for hours without speaking, the silence oppressive and watchful. He never explained why she was there. Never apologized for disrupting her sleep or her routine. Never acknowledged that she was essentially his prisoner, that every moment of her life was controlled and monitored and approved by him. But he also never touched her. Never threatened her directly. Never raised his voice or showed anger. It was the control that terrified her most, the absolute casual control he wielded over every aspect of her existence like it was his right, like she was his possession. On the 4th day, Zara tested the boundaries. She needed to know where the walls were, where she could push and where she'd be pushed back. She walked toward the parking garage exit in the building's basement, following signs toward fresh air and freedom, wanting to feel sun on her face, to breathe air that didn't taste recycled and controlled. She made it exactly 20 feet past the elevator before 2 men in dark suits appeared from nowhere, materializing out of shadows like they'd been waiting for her. They didn't speak. Didn't touch her. Just stood there like human walls, their faces expressionless, their hands clasped in front of them in a posture that looked relaxed but was ready for violence. They waited until she turned around and walked back to the elevator, defeated and humiliated and furious. That night, Min-sik appeared in her apartment without knocking, without warning. One moment she was alone, the next he was standing in her living room pouring himself whiskey from the bar she never used, as casually as if this were his own home. Which, she supposed, it was. Everything here was his. Including her. "You tried to leave," he said, his tone conversational, like they were discussing the weather. "I wanted fresh air. I wanted to feel the sun. The terrace on this floor provides both. The terrace has armed guards standing in every corner. For your protection." "This isn't protection," Zara snapped, her fear finally cracking into rage that had been building for days. "This is captivity. This is imprisonment. This is you controlling every aspect of my life. Call it what it is." "It's both." Min-sik drank slowly, his expression maddeningly calm, infuriatingly composed. "You're not a prisoner, Zara. You're a secret. And secrets must be kept safe, must be protected, must be controlled." "Safe from whom? Your enemies? Your business partners? Other criminals who might want to?" "From everyone." He set down the glass with deliberate care, the crystal ringing softly against marble. "Do you know what happens to women who become associated with men like me? Really associated, not just employed but seen with us, connected to us in the minds of our enemies? They're kidnapped. Tortured for information they don't even have. Used as leverage in negotiations they don't understand. Killed, not because they matter but because we matter, because hurting them hurts us. You think this is control? This is mercy. This is me keeping you alive. I didn't ask for your mercy. No. You asked for your mother's life. And I'm giving it to you." Min-sik stepped closer, and Zara forced herself not to retreat, not to show fear even though her heart hammered against her ribs. "The surgery is scheduled for next week. Wednesday morning, Korean time. The hospital called today. They've received full payment, all $30,000, plus an additional $10,000 for post-operative care and medications. Your mother's doctor, Dr. Kwame Asante, has been fully briefed. Everything is arranged." The word stole Zara's breath. Her knees went weak. "Already? But you said 2 months." "I said within 2 months. I didn't say it would take that long." Something almost like gentleness crossed his face. I keep my promises, Zara. All of them. That's how I've survived this long in my world. My word is the only currency that matters. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not in front of him. Not when crying would prove she was weak, would prove she was exactly as powerless as he wanted her to be. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm not doing this out of kindness. I'm doing it because I need you compliant and focused, not distracted by worry. But his eyes contradicted his words, showing something that might have been actual concern. Just survive this, Zara. That's all I want from you. Survive and stay silent. He left without another word, the door closing behind him with a soft click of electronic locks engaging. Zara collapsed onto the pristine white sofa and cried for the first time since arriving in Seoul, relief and rage and helplessness tangling together until she couldn't separate them. Her mother would live. The surgery would happen. Grace Mensah would wake up in a week with a new kidney and a chance at life. But what would Zara become in the process of saving her? What was she willing to sacrifice? What had she already lost? The weeks blurred into a strange routine. Minseek's world was a mix of legitimate business and shadow dealings that Zara only glimpsed at the edges, never fully understanding but slowly piecing together. He ran import-export companies, real estate holdings, tech investments, all legal on the surface, documented and taxed and respectable. But the men who visited late at night, speaking in languages she didn't understand, their faces hard with violence barely contained, told a different story. So did the blood she saw once on his shirt cuff when he returned from a midnight absence, dark red against white silk. So did the way people moved around him, the deference that looked like fear, the distance that looked like respect but smelled like terror. Zara watched. Listened. Learned. She learned that Minseek had enemies, rival syndicates from Busan and Incheon, corrupt politicians who demanded higher bribes, business partners who smiled to his face while scheming behind his back. She learned his guards rotated every 6 hours, 3 shifts of 6 men each, all former military with backgrounds in special operations. She learned the blind spots in the camera coverage, the 3 corners where surveillance didn't quite reach. She learned that he drank the same whiskey every night at exactly 11 p.m., Macallan 25, poured the same way, 2 fingers neat, always in the same crystal glass. She also learned the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. Not just with desire, though that was there, carefully controlled but undeniable in the way his eyes lingered on her face, her hands, the curve of her neck. With something that looked almost like recognition. Like he saw something in her that reminded him of himself, some quality he understood and maybe even respected. 7 weeks into her captivity, Minseek summoned her to his penthouse terrace at midnight. Zara found him staring at Seoul's lights, the city sprawling below them like a living organism of neon and possibility. His suit jacket was discarded on a chair, his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal more of those serpent tattoos coiling up his forearms like living things. He held a glass of his usual whiskey and didn't turn when she stepped onto the terrace, the October night air cold enough to make her shiver in her thin sweater. "Do you hate me?" he asked the city, his voice quiet. The question surprised her. "Does it matter?" "No. But I'm curious." He finally looked at her. "Most people lie to me constantly. About everything. It's exhausting, constantly parsing truth from manipulation." "No regrets?" he asked, pulling her close. Zara thought of the woman she'd been 4 months ago, scrubbing toilets at 3 in the morning, invisible to the world, desperate and alone. That woman was gone. Dead. In her place stood someone harder, someone dangerous, someone who'd learned to survive in shadows and blood. "Not yet," she said honestly. "Ask me again in a year." "I will." Minseek kissed her forehead, gentle in a way that contradicted everything she knew about him. "Every day for the rest of your life, I'll ask. And every day, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure your answer stays the same. Even if I want to leave?" "Even then. Though I'll try to convince you to stay. I'll try very hard." "How?" "By being what you need me to be. Partner. Protector. Problem. Whatever keeps you alive and beside me. Whatever makes this cage bearable. Zara looked out at Seoul stretching below them, glittering and dangerous and full of possibilities she'd never imagined for herself when she'd left Accra 5 months ago with a suitcase and a dream. Her mother was alive and healthy, recovered fully from her surgery, calling every week to tell Zara how grateful she was, how proud. Zara had a visa now. Legal status. An apartment that would cost $5 million if anyone tried to buy it. Power she'd never dreamed possible. The cost was her freedom. The cost was her innocence. The cost was becoming someone she barely recognized when she looked in the mirror, someone who'd watched men die and felt nothing, someone who slept beside a killer and felt safe. But she was alive. She was seen. She mattered. And sometimes, survival was enough. Ask me tomorrow, Zara said, turning in his arms to face him. I will. And he did. Every day for the rest of their lives, Kong Minsik asked if Zara Mensa regretted choosing him. Every day, her answer changed slightly, the regret and gratitude and love and fear shifting like shadows, never quite settling into one clear truth. But she never left. Because leaving would mean dying, and Zara had learned that survival, even in a cage, was better than the alternative. Because the man who imprisoned her had also saved her. Because love and captivity weren't opposites but could exist in the same space, twisted together until you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. The serpent had swallowed her whole. But she'd learned to breathe in darkness. She'd learned to find light in impossible places. She'd learned that freedom was just another cage, and at least this one had someone who saw her, who knew her, who chose her every day just as she chose him. And that, somehow, was its own kind of freedom. Twisted and complicated and probably wrong. But real. Undeniably, terrifyingly, beautifully real. If this story of survival, impossible choices, and dark devotion moved you, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me what you'd do in Zara's position. Would you choose the cage with protection or take your chances with freedom and death? Would you fall for your captor or find a way to escape? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next story where we explore the complicated spaces between love and captivity, choice and survival, the monsters we fear and the ones we choose to love. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous cage is the one we build ourselves.